The talk concerning the possible opening of the 2020 baseball season is starting to concern me. I fear some people, including some fans, may have lost their humanity.
Philadelphia Baseball History presents
The argument to start the 2020 MLB season. Are we losing our humanity? Since the end of March, I've been devouring every piece of news that I can find regarding the possible start of the 2020 baseball season. The earlier plans, the Arizona plan and the Florida and Arizona plan, well, I found them fascinating. Even though these were just strategically calculated leaks, there was still an effort being made to describe how players, coaches, umpires, front office staff, and even hotel personnel were going to be protected as much as possible. And part of that idea was isolating everyone involved in a small geographic location. But with this latest plan, the one that the MLB owners approved, we seem to have skipped right over safety and are now focusing on money. When I first heard about the new plan, I had some questions about how it was going to be implemented, but I assumed that it was already part of the plan and that those details just weren't being shared anymore. I thought that was why everyone was now focusing on money. Turns out, I was gravely mistaken. Right now, we're hearing from multiple players, from Sean Doolittle to Blake Snell to Bryce Harper, expressing some real misgivings with respect to the steps the owners plan to do to protect the health of everyone involved, from the players to the hot dog vendors. Or maybe I should say, the lack of such steps. Let's start with where the games are going to be played. The latest plan calls for teams to return to their home stadiums. Well, unless the local government is not allowing that. And this is only possible because so many states have started to reopen their economies. They've started to lift a lot of the restrictions that they put in place back in March. These were restrictions that were meant to slow the spread of the pandemic. But in the MLB plan, there's no thought as to whether the state should really be doing this right now. You see, the CDC guidelines provide that in order for a state to start lifting its restrictions, there should be a 14-day decline in new cases. No state meets that requirement right now. Yet many of the states are still pushing to reopen. So I have this fear that even though the risk is still out there, the fact that the states are starting to reopen is giving the MLB owners a cover, sort of a license to ignore the risk. If you remember from the first two plans, there was a lot of talk about how players would be isolated in hotels and they would only be transported between hotels and the ballparks. There's no talk of anything like this anymore. It's almost like, now players, you're all on your own, as well as the front office staff and other workers who, quite frankly, don't have a powerful union to protect them. Then Sean Doolittle made some excellent points on Twitter. Some players, believe it or not, are living from paycheck to paycheck. And here, let's think about those minor league players on the 40-man roster. The ones that get shifted back and forth between AAA and the major leagues as the team needs. When they're playing in the minors, they're getting paid a minor league salary. And believe me, that's not much. And when they come up to the majors, maybe they're getting the major league minimum, but it's being prorated. So not every player is making $30 million a season. I have a little bit of personal experience regarding this. Back when I was in law school, I used to work for a workers' compensation firm. I was surprised when I found a couple of cases that involved former Major League ball players. These were ball players who suffered an injury on the field, and yet instead of being supported by Major League Baseball, they had to rely on workers' compensation in order to live. This is the economic reality of being a baseball player. Doolittle also points out that there are players with pre-existing conditions. These are players who, of course, would be at a higher risk than other players who are in the league. Now, thinking back to football, I know this is true. You see, there was this kicker for the San Diego Chargers. His name was Rolf Benirschke. You may remember him from the brief time that he hosted Wheel of Fortune. He had ulcerative colitis, and in the middle of one season, he had to have a colostomy. After his surgery, he played with a colostomy. And he's probably not the only professional athlete with a story like that. Plus, locker rooms, clubhouses, these are crowded places. Try social distancing there. Then Blake Snell gets recorded while he was playing a video game and had some off-the-cuff remarks. He basically said that the risk to his health wasn't worth the pay cut that was being bantered about. And for this, both Doolittle and Snell have been called some pretty nasty names by a few fans, because, heaven forbid, they're not willing to be our entertainment if the health risks aren't being addressed. This is an imperial Rome. We're not entitled to have people risk their health and their lives just so we can get a few hours of watching people play baseball on TV at night. Look, money is a big issue, but we can't fault the players for being concerned not only for their own health, but for the health of their families, for the health of the umpires, for the health of the people who make baseball games possible. I do still hope that we can see baseball in some form this season, but not if the owners are going to be cavalier in protecting the health and safety of everybody who's involved.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com. The link is in the description box. We have t-shirts, hoodies, tote bags, mugs, and more with our designs in our merch store. Please visit the merch store at the link in the description box. Please consider subscribing to our channel. Leave a comment if you have any ideas for future videos. Give us a like and click the bell button if you would like to receive notification when we publish videos in the future.